Please be seated and we will resume our meeting.
I
now invite deputations to speak. Each representative of deputations and individuals will have up to 4 minutes to speak, 3 minutes to speak. Your speeches will not enjoy the protection and immunity under the Electoral Powers and Privileges Ordinance, Cap 382. So please note this. I'll first give the floor to the representative from the Hong Kong Institute of Architects. Thank you. I represent the Hong Kong Institute of Architects. Our institute always advocates a quality environment for living. So in principle, we support the development of NENT. However, rapid city development where quality is compromised will cause us heavily socially. So when it comes to sustainable development, the current package doesn't allow city and rural areas to coexist together. This is regrettable. And the plot ratio is now relaxed to 6, and then the height limit is not relaxed. We're afraid that there will be a lot of wall-like buildings, and rural space will be totally destroyed. Thirdly, rational or reasonable compliance with the Hong Kong planning guidelines and standards. Well, we are worried that you may repeat the very dense development of Chung Kung O again. And please reconsider the private-public housing mix. We wonder if you will continue to have the step height concept. So please make adjustment to the plan. And we want the government to have long-term planning strategy. Farming is now sacrificed in this picture. This is disappointing. We want to preserve some degree of local farming, and there should be clear policies to underpin this position. And we believe that there is nothing in the plan about self-sufficiency. Please do not repeat the mistake of Northwest NT, where residents are required to travel a long way to a town center for work. This is a serious planning plight. And then the go or stay of the Fanning Golf Course is also an important issue. Please identify an alternative site on Lantau, for instance, or somewhere near the Disneyland to have an overall resort area for leisure and recreation. And the formed land in the golf course can then be used for land supply very soon. Mr. Kwan Wengip, thank you. The New Democrats made a proposal in conjunction with some professionals and community organizations. We against placing large population in NENT because we have to consider the capacity of our transport infrastructure and also the long traveling time. For residents living in Shanghai, finding a typo, I think they have noted that the Israel is already up to capacity or oversaturated. Many people queried whether NENT NDAs are just for integration of Hong Kong and Shenzhen because it's very close to the boundary, and there is no guarantee from the government that all the housing there will be for Hong Kong residents. And we are worried that the area is not planned just for the interests of Hong Kong. The government has ignored opposition from the community and ignored the basic principles of town planning. Professionals and green groups have no choice but to choose between the lesser of the two evils. So we are proposing Kwu Tung and Fanling Pek North, which has got about 10,000 people living there. It has a large area of farmland and is the means of livelihood for many farmers. Kwu Tung has also got soy sauce factory, and it provides soy sauce for local consumption and jobs for local people. This government attaches a lot of significance to housing, hoping that people can own their own homes. But why should we do it at the expense of the residents in NENT? Mr. Paul Chen pointed out that if the Fanling Golf Course is to be developed, it will take about 10 years for public consultation and planning. And yet for the removal of villages, it has been discussed for more than 10 years, and therefore the Fanling Golf Course cannot be used as an alternative. Well, we've checked the archive. Although there's been a lot of discussion about NENT, NDAs, much of the time was spent on internal discussion with the government. Public consultation was only done in the past few years. There was no proper public engagement, and many legislators, green groups, and residents in NENT didn't have the opportunity to respond to the public consultation. The lease of the Fanling Golf Course was last signed in 1999 for 20 years to expire in 2020. We believe there is sufficient time for the government to recover the land so that it can replace NENT NDAs. Thank you. Ms. Wong Li. Thank you. I am Wong Li from Dongbak Gongla. I grew up in the city, so in the city you can only see economic development and economic efficiency, and we have little concern for the nature. And yesterday at a meeting, some villagers told us that they had to go home and they really have to get into their apartments before they are home. But for villagers, well, the countryside is their home. Well, in rural areas, we do not see any struggle for power and other things. C.Y. Leung regards young people as an accomplice of his lies. He treats us as a shield for development. We do not see any community or neighborhood network. I think he is just cheating us. He wants to move the next generation into NENT, and this is hardly acceptable. Well, we are all Hong Kong people. I'd like to know whether senior officials have heard our voices. Mr. Chen, have you heard our voices? Our organization demands that our next generation be properly educated so they know what is really the countryside and also the relationship between human and the environment. So we urge the CY administration and also Mr. Paul Chen to step down. We don't want the next generation to continue to be abused by you or exploited by you. Thank you. Order, please, so that we can proceed orderly. Mr. Hey Man. Thank you. The Conservancy Association would like to talk about farming arrangements. We're very disappointed with the latest proposals by the administration because many active farmland and fallow land that have potential for rehabilitation are zoned GIC or housing in the plan. We've talked about conservation of farmland and also community economies associated with farming on various occasions. However, our ideas have never been incorporated into this plan, so we are very disappointed. We are disappointed because the government has polarized city development and farming. The government should think twice. You should make use of your land resumption procedures in rezoning the farming plots there. Government should not resume land for housing development. Rather, the land should be returned to people affected by the plan so that they can continue farming there, so that we can preserve the green space there, so that we can really have the rural environment continue to exist in NENT. Regarding rehabilitation of farming, the government claims that there is a land earmarked in Chilking, Kutong South. But as pointed out by many deputations, the farmland there is totally fenced up. Perhaps it is already hoarded by property developers. According to some villages, there was active farming 2 years ago there, but now it's turned to wilderness. The land is already owned by property developers. So let me quote some figures by the administration. In the past 5 years, the administration has helped 73 farmers to identify land for rehabilitation, and the land involved is 11.1 hectares. So only 15 farmers have been helped to identify 2 hectares of land for farming. For people who are interested to become farmers, well, there are 200 in the line waiting for the government to match land and farmers. These farmers cannot identify land for their farming activities, so this is undesirable. The administration has to prove that their plan is useful and effective. To do that, you must assist those waiting in the line to resume farming at once, to prove to the community that your scheme does work before you implement it in NENT NDAs. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chiu-wai. Thank you. I represent my father's wife's daughter and the daughter's younger brother here. So Mr. Paul Chen Mr. Paul Chen has vested interest. I wonder why he is sitting opposite me instead of next to me. In what way is he qualified to sit here to listen to our comments? I fail to understand. He claims that the land doesn't belong to him. It belongs to his wife's younger brother. How is it different from land owned by himself? No difference. NENT NDAs will destroy many people's homes. Should it go on? Well, first, they talked about integration between Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Now, integration of the Greater Pearl River Delta region. Are you doubting your own conviction? Do you find the whole plan problematic? You have cheated Hong Kong people time and again, and still you want to persist. I am a villager of Takuling, Pingche. Now we've been cut off, and we are now in the NT North NDA when consultation will start in 2012. Are you giving time for property developers to hoard land in the interim? Well, at the last City Forum, we were told that guidelines will be for the property developers. But what about the non-indigenous villages and also squatters there? In NENT, there are many farmers and also squatters on private land, not on government land. So are your guidelines helpful to them? Can you protect their interests?
And do the guidelines carry any legal effect? If the guidelines are not followed in land resumption, can you do anything? Have you thought about all these? Have you thought about all these problems? And I don't need Mr. Paul Chen to answer my questions because he doesn't have the quality to do so. You mess up Hong Kong. We are worse than mainland. Bao Xilai has been taken to court. How come you are still sitting here? It's useless to criticize you. You ignore this. Time's up. Mr. Cheng Chi-lang. My association have 5 suggestions to the project. We think the project will address housing needs. We have serious housing needs in Hong Kong, about 230,000 people waiting to be allocated a PRH flat, and over 170,000 people are living in subdivided flats. The NDA will address our housing needs. In Sha Tin and Tseung Kwan O, more than 1 million people are living in the 2 areas. In the 70s, in the 80s, if Sha Tin was not turned into a new town, if Tseung Kwan O had not been turned into a new town, where would the 1 million people be living now? That's why I think NENT development will address our housing needs in the medium and the long run. Secondly, the administration should, at appropriate time, come up with a blueprint for housing development. We understand the administration is working hard to address our housing needs, but there is a lack of comprehensive planning when it comes to explaining the policies to the public. In fact, there are many plans within the government concerning housing. For example, we have NENT, we have Hung Shui Kiu development project, we also have the artificial islands beyond our plan beyond Victoria Harbour. The administration should let the public know that it is trying to come up with a blueprint for housing development. If we are against NENT, how can we face up to the future generations? Thirdly, increase plot ratio. We think it's right for the administration to raise the plot ratio to 6 in the city center and to reduce the PR to 3.5 in the surrounding area. Because of time constraint, I'm not going into details. I just want to say that the adjustments is good for our development. Next, we support relocation in situ and the allocation and the flexible arrangement for PRH rehousing. We also think it's right to offer up to 600,000 compensation to the eligible squatters. But we hope there will be flexibility offered to those people moved in after 84 and 85. Now, in 96, the administration started planning for NENT project. I hope these people who move in after 96 will also get compensation. Time's up for you, Miss Hui. I live in Takuling, Pingche. You may ask, how come I'm here to express my views, since my area is taken out from the project? Now, from the very beginning, there's no plan for PRH HOS development in Pingche Takuling, nor are there any plans for Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people in our area. This area is for people who can afford luxury housing, for people who can afford to enter into speculation in property. In fact, our area cannot help address housing needs in Hong Kong. The administration has not promised that our areas will be taken out of development. It says next year there will be redevelopment, replanning. They are giving time to the developers to get more land, to hoard more land. They try to drive villagers away using the developers, our homes will be taken away. What will happen to us? You know the mean tricks of developers. But the government will say it's in the dark. It doesn't know about the contract, the agreement. It may say that if we can't afford the 50,000 rent, then we can always move. But we have been living there for so many years. You say this project is not a collusion between government and developers. I don't think so. I'm sure you know very well if it is collusion. I'm sure members and officials here know whether this is collusion. On the one hand, you say that you will slow down the development, but you already have everything planned. You may say there is a land exchange and we can build our homes again. Now, take a look at the revised plan. The developers' land is within the housing development area. They knew what would happen very early. Then the developers will build the flats and the government will build the roads. And the government doesn't have to do anything. The villagers will be driven away. And yet you claim this is for the sake of development and we have to move out. We have been living there for decades. What will happen to us? Just because of something you say, then we have to move out. Time's up for you. Mr. Cheng Yewa. Good morning, Secretary. I'm from CUHK. I think you should be shamefaced in quoting the anthem of New Asia College. Secretary, please step down. Secretary, you know very well whether you serve your own interest in launching any anti-project. You still sit here. You're shameless. Maybe because of your faith, you think it's fine. I think you are wrong. You may think that you follow the declaration system and you're not in the wrong. But I think you are wrong. I think you are wrong morally. Maybe not in the sense of law. You responded bit by bit only, and people have this impression that you want to conceal something. So mine is a moral accusation. You may think that there's nothing wrong with you, but your image, your reputation in the public eye is already ruined. I think you should step down. And if you genuinely believe in yourself, believe that there's nothing wrong with the system, that you try to maximize your interest within the system, then there's nothing wrong. Then I have to tell you, the new generation does not agree with this. In fact, we have so many villagers here. Their homes will be affected because of the plan. This is what we care most about. The administration talks about Hong Kong, our home. But just look. The NENT project will ruin the homes of so many people. Reclamation will also ruin the homes of people. The administration, however, keeps saying that you are preparing for the next generation, for the younger people. Please don't make use of us. We want to have good jobs. We want to have a good home. But it doesn't mean that we want other people to sacrifice for us. We want to have integration of rural and urban areas. As young people, we want to have a rural life coexist next to city life. If you really think we are in the same family, please listen to us. We want to have a say in this family. We don't want officials who are elected from a small circle election telling us what to do. You are embroiled in scandal, Secretary, and you still stay in your post. You are shameless. Please step down. We want to have universal suffrage. All right, time's up for you. Mr. Tam-chi-kit, I want to remind everyone that before you are asked to speak, please keep quiet. Next. Good morning. I'm from Takuleng Pingche. Last July, we first came to know about the NENT development. 1 year has passed, and still not one official came to the area to consult us. On the 2nd of September, someone said the plan is for Hong Kong people. It's not an issue of withdrawing the plan. But 1 year has passed. How come the secretary is retracting his words? If the project is for Hong Kong people, you would not have made changes so lightly. What sort of plan is this? How come the government is lying, saying that this is not a plan for integration of mainland and Hong Kong? This is an important plan, and the plan is in the hand of an incompetent secretary, a dishonest secretary. Why? 4 generations of my family have been staying in the area. We were born and raised here. We are against this NENT project. This may end up in ruins. We want to have conservation of nature. We want to have conservation of farmland. We want enhancement of farming policy. Thank you. And Secretary, please step down soon. Next, Mr. Lee Man-kit. Mr. Chen, you hold land. You will develop the land, you say it publicly. Have you offered any protection to the villagers there? No? You only say that you will look into the matter, but there's no mentioning of preventing any damage to the villagers. You say NENT will be developed, and the developers have been hoarding land. They are frantically hoarding land. They are driving people away. Have you seen this? Even if you have, you just pretend that you haven't seen it. You haven't heard about it. And you say 600,000 will be compensated to villagers. The developers don't want to do that. That's why they drive people away even before the compensation package is announced. Do you know that? In Takuleng and Pingche, there are many farmers, elderly farmers. You have eaten vegetables grown by them. Do you remember them? Do you have any conscience? You even disown your own family members. You claim that they're not your family members. I don't think you have a conscience. You have to undertake that there will be laws to protect people who are living on land that will be developed, because they are leading a hard life. And the plot you owned has been sold at over $2 million. I think you lost. I have more for you. Tens of millions to you. Please, usher, just stay still. Speakers off mic. Mr. Lee, please go back to your seat. Please go back to your seat. Please. You are obstructing the meeting. If you continue, I have to ask you to leave. Please step down. If you are noisy and you speak before you're asked, I have to ask you to leave. Miss Lee, Good morning. I'm from Xingping village. Many villagers, residents, have talked about land issues and the impact of the development plan. I have several questions. I live so far away, and yet I travel here to tell you our views. Have you listened to us? We are here to tell you that we want to protect our home. Is it wrong? We just want to protect the home that we own for so many generations. What's wrong with that? We lived through the hardship in the 60s and 70s. We farm on our land to make ends meet. But because of this development plan, our land, our home are ruined. There's nothing wrong with the direction of development, you may say, but where's your conscience? We are also people. We are not goods that you can move about. We just want to protect our homes, and our parents just want to stay at home at holidays to cook for their family members, for their grandchildren. They don't want to go to the restaurant to eat. How come you propose these developments which make the elderly people so worried in the past year? They are hurt in different ways. I think the officials are shameless. I am a Christian. I don't know how to accept the fact that, Secretary, you are also a Christian. For someone who has suffered so much in Takuling, this someone has lived in Takuling for 70 years, and yet he never asked any assistance. He supports his own families. My father is 93 years old. Because of the development plan, he lost over 10 pounds, and he has been moving in and out of hospital. He thinks relocating him to an other flat is really an insult. He asked me to read out a poem to the secretary, so you understand his feelings. We see the sunset and we heard our own hearts. But now the trees will be gone. And we can only sigh. As a Christian, as a secretary, please understand the feelings of elderly people living in the 3 areas. They lead a rural life. They don't have much demand. Next, Mr. Feng Kin-chung. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah.
I represent the Hong Kong Pig Raising Development Federation. I'd like to mention 3 points. For the Northeast NT NDA development plan, farms are to be relocated. The administration should give us reasonable compensation. The government should also provide land for the farmers to continue with their farming. At the moment, only very few lots are government land. They're not enough for agricultural development. Secondly, agriculture needs a great deal of land. But the government's land policy has caused the price of farmland to remain on a high level. But proceeds from farming are very, very little. The farmers absolutely cannot afford the high land premium or land cost. The landowners will not be willing to lease their land lots to farmers on a long-term basis. Well, maybe the farmers can get a one-year tenancy, but in the following year, there may be a change of ownership. The original landowner may have passed the land to his son, etc., etc. And then the communication between the farmer concerned and the landowner may be different, such that the farmer can no longer hire the land for farming. We suggest that the government provides land for the long-term use of agriculture. You can take reference from the Science Park, the industrial estate, and set up a consolidated farming estate in order to lease land to farmers for the development of agriculture. At the same time, you can develop high-tech farming such that agriculture can be sustainable. And for high-tech agriculture, it can actually provide very good business opportunities for society. Thirdly, because of land problems, agriculture is diminishing. The government should develop its agricultural policy such that farmers can continue to farm and contribute to society. Time's up. Thank you. Next, Mr. Chan Kin Yip. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm the Vice Chairman of Farm Kit from Yuen Long. Number one, you must have perfect planning such that agriculture and conservation can coexist. As for Northeast NT, there are conservation lots such as the Long Valley wetland. Most lots there are private lots. Farmers are farming on those lots. In its conservation policy, the government has neglected its support and assistance for the farmers. Bird catching is prohibited in these areas such that farmers are unable to guard against the birds. So the farmers are now being disturbed by the birds, which actually affect harvest. Therefore, suitable compensation and support should be given to the affected farmers under the conservation policy. As for wetland conservation, there's conflict between it and the interest of the farmers. Prohibitive conservation policy will cause more birds to breed in the area, thus causing a great deal of nuisance to the farmers. And same as Mr. Fong, we would like to set up an integrated agriculture estate. There are 28 hectares of farmland under the plan which will be affected. And in Kutong South, only 5 hectares of land are government land and can be used for rehabilitation. That is insufficient to match the amount of land owned by the existing farmers. And in Kutong South, most land owners are indigenous villagers or owners of private lots. Most of them are unwilling to lease their land to farmers for agriculture. Therefore, the existing matching plan has failed. I hope that the government can consider establishing an integrated agriculture estate or village for integrated development of agriculture. The government should provide land, roads, irrigation facilities, etc., such that farmers can rent the land for rehabilitation. That will help rescue agriculture. To sum up, there will be a number of development projects in the new territories. The government should support sustainability for agriculture. Time's up next. Mr. Wen Chongping. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a member of the Federation of Hong Kong Agriculture Association. On the 25th of this month, we visited the Vegetable Society in Kutong, which is actually located in New Territories North. During the visit, we tried to understand the farmers' views. Agriculture represents core values in society. It can safeguard income and agricultural sustainability. So the government should attach importance to agriculture. Over 100 households, farming households, were affected. 200,000 square meters of farmland will be affected. Therefore, farmers' voices must not be neglected. Facing the development plan, the incumbent farmers, for the sake of improving the living environment of the other residents, may sacrifice themselves. But there must be rehousing before demolition. For the aged farmers or retired farmers, in situ rehousing should be considered so that their minds can be set at ease. As for those in rehabilitation, the government should help them to fetch farmland elsewhere, relax the licensing regime such that they can resume farming as soon as possible. If rehabilitation is impossible, I have to say that Kutong South alone will not be sufficient for rehabilitation. There are only 5 hectares of land are government land. The other lots are private lots. The landowners may not be willing to lease the land for farming. Even if matching is successful, the farmers have to face rental problems as well as uncertainty in the duration of tenancy, thus affecting the sustainability of farming. And then the government should also resume land for the long-term development of agriculture. The government can resume the land first and then lease the land to farmers for long-term farming. Roads, electricity, water, supply, etc., as well as transport should be provided, such that farmers have confidence in rehabilitation, such that agriculture will not be suffocated. The ultimate solution is to have an integrated agricultural village or estate for rehabilitation. We should also research into agricultural technology. And then there is this compensation issue as well. We're of the view that given the present living standard, the inflation in society, $600,000 will not be enough for reinstating a squatter hut. Besides, that level of compensation has been in place for many, many years. The government should review it and give consideration to inflation and commodity prices in delineating the compensation level. Mr. Wong Cheng-kin, I'd like to ask you, the 5 officials on the opposite side, they say that they will do a good job for Hong Kong people. Starting from the 22nd of September, on which there's a consultation session, so many people asked you to withdraw the plan. You did not withdraw the plan. Rather, you produced a so-called enhanced or revised version. Now, these 5 officials on the opposite side, have you ever visited those sites? You sit in your offices and use your pens and pencils to draw this and draw that. Have you ever drawn the feelings of the villagers affected? Inside the villages, there are many old people who have been living there for many, many years. They would like to stay in their own home comfortably. And then, just in one go, you are going to demolish their home. How can you ask the elders to get adapted to a new lifestyle? Did the bureau director visit the villagers to see what they're doing and what they've done? I've not seen you. You only want to hear what you want to hear. And you don't want to hear what you don't want to hear. Inside the villages, there are so many elders. Are you going to sacrifice them, kill them all? You are a father, you are a son. If you are we what will you think? Don't bury your conscience. There are so many elders in the villages. How can you perform so? You have not take care of Hong Kong people there. You're taking care of another group of Hong Kong people. Up to this moment, you've not uttered a word. I would like to know, have you ever visited the villages? Starting from last year, I asked you to go to the villages to explain to the villagers. You did not do so, not even now. Bureau Director, you said that you're going to do a good job. Up to now, have you visited the villages? Have you talked to the villagers? I've been living there for so long, I've never seen you. And for the revised version for Northeast NT Development Plan, it is actually an enhanced plan for government-business collusion. All the villagers, whether or not they own land lots, won't benefit. You're not doing a good job. You're only serving certain Hong Kong people. If you're really committed, you can build an artificial island, a man-made island, just like that for Hong Kong-Macau-Zhuhai Bridge. Why is it that you only be happy after you have demolished other people's homes? Don't bury your conscience. I'm also a Hong Kong citizen. I live in North District, you live in Southern District. I travel so far here. I only earn $10,000 a month. You earn $100,000. I come a long way here just to tell you all these. Don't bury your conscience. Next. On the 11th, on the 17th during the last Q&A session of the CE in LegCo, the CE said that Northeast NT would be a new development area. Secondary school students, primary school students will live in this new development area. The CE was still using sophistry to mislead naive young people who may think that Hong Kong has very little land and a lot of people. Scarce land resources, huge population. These are just mythical talks. In fact, in Hong Kong, there are other land for use. The government is using young people to bully the villagers. Number two, to handle the housing problem of young people. Well, I'm a young person, but my concern is not whether or not I have a home in future, but this false consultation exercise, this false NENT development project. The elders don't read English. You send them English letters. Once the villagers speak, you say that they've expressed their views and you've listened to them. Well, these villagers are amiable, friendly, and harmonious. But with this development plan, you're actually colluding with the major land developers and bullying the indigenous villagers. If we know everything behind the scene, whether or not I get housing units in the public and private sectors, all young people like me won't sleep well every night. Because today the government has disregarded thousands of households in the affected area. You use the excuse of providing housing units for young people, but for a human being, a housing unit is not the basic. We need to have values and conscience. If you are to drive these households away, I'd rather live in subdivided flats, but I won't rent a subdivided flat from you, Mr. Porchan. Northeast NT includes 10 or dozens of villages. A lot of your plans here are not people-oriented. You are using people's wish for home ownership to demolish households and families. So it's not just a matter for Northeast NT, it's for the whole of Hong Kong. Do not execute this plan. It should be withdrawn immediately, and Mr. Paul Chan should step down immediately as well. I hope that participants won't produce noises. Otherwise, the meeting will be affected. Once again, I urge you not to do so. Next, Mr. Wong Kin Long. We're a young DAB. The DAB is of the view that the Northeast NT is the most mature development area. As for housing arrangements for our residents is very important, particularly for the grassroots. If you look at the proposed plan, 60% of the housing units will be in the public sector. The DAB also proposes a higher development density and sufficient private land for Hong Kong property for Hong Kong people project. Still, the DAB is a bit worried because the first batch of public housing units will only be completed in 10 years' time. It's a bit too slow. Will government expedite the project and works? As for the mode of development, you need to take care of public perception. We would like to see the plan materialized as soon as possible. New town development is good. Owners of private lots can submit land exchange applications. I believe this will strike a balance in terms of land provision. As for land exchange, members of the public do have doubts and worries, so we would like to have enhanced transparency. And all along, the DAB has advocated for development at the same time for all the three areas, including Takuling and Ping Cheng. We would like to have enhanced job opportunities, 10,700 jobs. But that's no longer in the development plan, which means many residents in future will have to go to other districts to work. So will you consider enhanced TNT facilities? As for Fanling and Changshui, the communities are aging, in particular in Shakuhui and Lunwohui. At the moment, for Northeast NT, it will become an expanded or extended area of Changshui and Fanling, and in the end we'll have an integrated community. In the process, the older areas will be affected. For example, traffic and transport, commercial facilities, etc., may be affected. So at the same time of developing new communities, you have to enhance the living quality of the old areas.
Mr. Yong Kun Ping. Good afternoon. I'm here to express my views to senior officials and leaders here. I've been here many times, but I don't know whether you have heeded my views. For farmers like us, well, we just want to be law compliant and we are satisfied so long as we can make a living. But why do you want to eradicate us? I have a family of 7 and my family is totally broken up. Well, I've come here so many times. I don't really want to come. I enjoy coming here. I come here reluctantly, do you know? I have a family of 7. I've got, 2 parents. No. I've got 2 elderly persons. Bear with me. They are over 80 years old. My parents, my elderly parents. I've got 3 children together with my wife. We make a family of 7. We are in extreme hardship. I sweated my whole life to plant vegetables in my land. Li Shaoqi wants to donate land to the government, and he took me to the court. He wanted to recover the land. I think this is tantamount to robbing from me. We, a family of 7, live in and out of the farm. Do you regard me as animals? Well, even beasts or animals have somewhere to shelter. If I am evicted, all my property will be lost. All right, senior officials and leaders, I have labored for decades now. If you have served for decades and you end up with no pensions, no salary, will you accept that? Of course not. You claim that Hong Kong is a world-class city. Well, in the whole of Asia, there are farming policies, but in Hong Kong, we have nothing. So farmers like myself have their family broken up and driven away from our homes. Do you have a farming policy? All places have a farming policy. You've never paid heed to what we say. I think you are really very black-hearted. You use lies to cheat us. You keep telling us that how good Hong Kong is. This is outrageous. Your time is up, Mr. Xing. Next, Ms. Chok Yin Yu. Good afternoon. I am a villager of Takuling Pinche. We, Takuling, are against NENT and DA. Why? Because it is very unjust. The planning is top-down, not bottom-up. And you always do it at the expense of the disadvantaged, the non-indigenous villages. You mainly target at non-indigenous villages settlements. You are destroying our farming activities. You have no respect for farmers. Third, we are being planned. Why are we always planned by you? Why don't we have the autonomy to choose where to live? My children should also have the freedom to choose where they live. You should not decide for them. Thirdly, we demand you to legislate at once to protect the interests of non-indigenous villagers. Do not allow property developers to hoard land and to evict us. Thank you. Thank you. Deputations and individuals, if you have written submissions, please put down your name on the submission and hand them to our staff when you leave so that we can understand your comments or your opinions. All right, this is now time for questions. Ms. Emily Lau, Ms. Albert Chen, Mr. Gary Fan, Mr. Leung Kwok Hong, Dr. Fernando Zhang. Anyone else would like to ask questions or make comments? All right, 4 minutes each for the time being, including questions and answers. Ms. Emily Lau. Thank you, Chairman. I thank the deputations and individuals for coming to the Council this morning. As we can see, the Secretary for Development is in such a state that he is no longer suitable to deal with this policy on behalf of the administration. But since we are all here, we are stuck in this stalemate, I think we have to go on for the time being. The Institute of Architects, Mr. Chang, said that this package cannot accommodate both rural and town developments. Can you elaborate on this? You have heard the comments of many speakers. What kind of a planning can accommodate both types of development? And Mr. of Conservancy Association talked about the policy of rehabilitation, farming rehabilitation. Well, many residents are concerned about this. You mentioned that 200-odd farmers are waiting for a matching with land. Can you tell us more? Although the Secretary said time and again that it's none of his business, meaning a farming policy is none of his business. So can you let us know so that officials can do a better job? All right, which one will go first? Thank you, Ms. Emily Lau. The concept of allowing rural and city developments to coexist, I think the enhanced proposals is just a replication of what we have in existing new towns. We want organic planning. We should keep the status quo of existing villages and the local ecology. Can we have a new form of planning to keep this while we have new developments? Because this is already a global plan. The so-called enhanced model is still rather backward compared with the global trend. So we encourage a bottom-up approach in communication. According to individuals and deputations, many directly affected villages have not been sufficiently consulted. The global trend is to have a bottom-up approach in planning. This should be the way forward, and it's also more democratic. I hope this addresses Ms. Emily Lau's question. Mr. Ng? When the administration talks about rehabilitation of farming, you must prove to the public that this is feasible, when the reality is we have more than 200 people on the waiting list. So you can see that the government moves too slowly in terms of matching land and farmers. This plan is not working well, and yet it's proposed that it can help affected farmers to engage in farming in the future. This is not convincing. You should prove to the public that the scheme is effective, and you should ensure that the current plan works before you tell affected farmers that this is an effective scheme and you can choose to continue farming elsewhere. I hope that the Secretary has heard such comments, and please respond later, because there are views from such professionals, and please do something to lessen the concerns of the public. Mr. Albert Chen. Policies and the implementation of such policies must be seen and felt to be fair by the public. Of course, in the process of development, some groups are bound to be affected. But if the policymaker himself is going to profiteer from this scheme, like this 19-time secretary. Why do I call him 19-time secretary? Because his value from the land he bought 19 years ago has seen its value increased by 19-folds, whereas some elderly persons and farmers are being affected. They are still living there, and the government, the secretary, will make a windfall from his land, and yet people living there will see their homes broken and they will be driven away. So this 19-fold secretary, when you were a legislator, you claimed that declaration of interest and this council should be whiter than white, whereas you are so black. You are blacker than black. Please take a look at yourself here, a picture of yourself. Your wife took out advertisement saying that if you were really hoarding land, you would not have just hoarded one plot in 19 years. This is because buying subdivided flats are even more profitable. Well, 19 years ago, we were already talking about the Northern Loop and also development of Kutong. It was the golden time for investment in land in the North District. And then you could even profit more. by speculating in subdivided flats. We don't know what other sources or what other areas of investment you have. You have so many overseas companies when we can't even check who are the directors. You've got so many interests involved. You are deemed unfit to continue in your position. You are not suitable for dealing with development matters because you are profiteering while villagers have their homes broken up. The people's power has made it very clear. If you don't step down, then by the time we come back in September, your colleagues will be in a very pitiable state. You claimed that you're being supported by your team members. We told you that we would not allow the constitutional or a government reorganization plan to go through. You didn't believe in us. Well, your colleagues would working so hard and you were able to drink drive, whereas your team members will have to tackle policies that are so unpopular to the public because of your own fault. So do you want to see yourself enjoying life, living comfortably while your team members are suffering? Now you are being defended by the 689 CE. The problem is you have made it difficult for the government to move an inch. If you really have mercy, if you have got any Christian spirit, you should have stepped down. You should not continue in your position, blocking governance, angering so many people here. Chairman, there is no need for him to respond. He will just give us the old cliche. Let me give you one more chance. Don't believe that you will always be defended by 689. Hong Kong people will not let you go easily. Legislators will not let you go easily. Look at yourselves here. You 19-volt secretary. Please do not yell in your seat. Mr. Albert Chen, please be seated. Well, he couldn't see this picture. I'm sure he can. You've lifted up for so long. This gentleman here, I warn you once again. I've no choice but to ask you to go if you continue in this way. Mr. Gary Fan, thank you. I thank the deputations and individuals who care so much for our homes and our who care so much for conservation that they're here this morning. I think we understand why members of the public are so unhappy. They have traveled a long way to come to express their views, and yet government officials dare not even look them straight in their eyes. I've been here and all along, and I saw how government officials just drop their heads and writing. Well, the director of planning went to meet the villagers, and I was also there. And villagers would like to have a direct dialogue with the secretary. Well, if there is so strong opposition in the community, you have to find out reasons. I'll be very succinct, secretary. I want an answer from you. Please respond why you are still using misleading sophistry to muddle your way through. Your wife, Ms. Frida Hui, said in a statement yesterday that the agricultural land was purchased in 1994 in Kutong, and then it was only announced in 1996 that the government was going to develop Kutong. However, there were already rumors in 1993, and Statement Industries decided to buy land in 1994, and records checked or confirmed that you were the one who bought land there. So how are you going to respond? Secretary. Speakers of my secretary, please respond. You want the secretary to reply? Please, silence. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. No, I am not asking you to reply. Secretary, as far as I know, when the agricultural lot was purchased, they were not aware of the situation nearby. You claimed in your statement that you owned no interest in statement industries. However, you went to negotiate the terms and you also signed the documents. How do you account for that? Secretary, members, please wait for your turn. When it's not your turn, please do not interfere with the Secretary's reply. And you're also taking up Mr. Fan's time. Chairman, I already made a reply last week here. No, he is not really answering my question. Mr. Wai-chuen, did you know that you did not just buy one plot of land but 3 lots? Well, Mr. Fan, you want him to answer, you allow him to do so. It is a plot. And the plot contains 3 adjoining numbers. That's it. 3 numbers, but they are adjoined. And as I said, last week I already gave a reply. The provisional sale and purchase agreement was signed by me. And when it comes to the sale and purchase agreement, it was Statement Industries. Well, Ms. Frida Hui said that before October the 10th last year, herself and his son did not own any interest in this. In fact, your son and your wife were shareholders of Orient Express. How come she claimed that she had no interest there? I fail to understand why Mr. Gary Fan could not understand. In her statement, she said that Orient Express, of course, had interest in the land there. So through Orient Express, they owned interest in this land. And other than what they owned through Orient Express, they had no interest in this land whatsoever. You are lying. You are lying. We will do our duty. Every time you appear in the council, we will ask you about potential conflict of interest, which you haven't given us a clear account. This is very unfair accusation and very misleading. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Mr. Wai-chuen said that he was a graduate of New Asia College. When the school song said that with empty hands, you don't own anything. Whereas in 1994, you already took the initiative to buy land in Kutong, and then you were a bit worried, and you asked your wife to do it for you. I think you were like a thief. In your mind, there is nothing else other than money. Please do not insult New Asia College. While I have never studied in New Asia College, I was never a university student. You were already a legislator. I sat opposite to you and I said, Confucius student asked Confucius, what should be the priorities? Given 3 choices, what should go first? And according to Confucius, it's okay if you have no soldiers, you have no military forces and nothing to eat. But if a country has no integrity, then the country will disappear. So you gave 5 statements in a week, and every time you gave us a different version, using one lie to cover up another. So what are you going to do? Let me give you a deadline. How many more statements do you have to make before you can tell us the whole truth? Can you do it in one go? Now, if you need 11 meetings, then I will be absent for the first 10 and come only at the 11th. Chairman, please ask him, how many more meetings will it take before he can tell us the truth? Discount his wife, discount his son. Just himself, tell us the truth.
Now, our chairman, the council chairman, also asked you to give explanation in one go. Mr. Leung, do you want a reply from the secretary? Yes. Jasper Chung, our council chairman, already talked about his views. So, what can you not ask your wife to make statements? She is not an official. How many more times do you need to make things clear? How much more time do you need? How many more occasions will we see before you give us an explanation, full explanation? I'm asking about you. Chairman, can I take the question now? Yes. Chairman, first of all, I have to point out what I have to say, what my family has to say. We have already said it. If you want to make supplement, is it the case that you will resign? Mr. Leung said when we responded to questions to the media, there were conflicts. I asked him to point out the conflicts. President Clinton did not ask Hillary Clinton to give explanation when Clinton was involved in sexual relations with his assistant. Speakers off mic. Leung Kwok-hong, Mr. Leung, leave the room. Leave the room. Speakers off mic. Mr. Leung, leave the room immediately. Dr. Fernando Chan. Thank you, Chairman. This plan is called a development plan, but many villagers have told you this is an unfair plan. They talked about their aspirations, and we can see they are angry. Ms. Li Po-hang talked about his father, who is in his 90s, and the 4 generations of her family, how they, all of them, have been affected by the plan. Her family likes a rural life, a simple life, but this development plan will raise her home to the ground. Secretary, how can you, or what will you say to Madam Li's father? How will you ask him to leave? How will you tell him that his contribution through his life will be ruined for the good of the entire Hong Kong? Secretary, please respond to the accusations, the aspirations of Madam Li. Secretary, Chairman, I'm sure you and other members know that the revised development plan of NENT already takes out Ping Che and Ta Koo Ling for the time being. These 2 areas are considered for anti-North development. In Stage 3 public engagement, last year, the 2 areas were included. They were planned for low-density housing development, special industries, and job opportunity creations. We collected lots of views from the public engagement. We consolidated the views. The transportation of Pingche and Taku Ling was very unsatisfactory, and that's why they were planned for low-density development. The two areas are now considered for NT North development. And under the NENT development plan, the two areas are not covered. For NT North development, my colleagues will consider the plan cautiously. We plan that in the first half of next year, consultancy firm will be commissioned to come up with a comprehensive study on NT North. But we would not just be looking at Pingche and Taku Ling, so it's too early to talk about Pingche and Taku Ling now. Chairman, I want to know. Well, I think the development in Pingche and Taku Ling are postponed, but they will be developed. Mr. Cheng from Institute of Architects talked about organic development, which will not affect farmland, will not affect local residents. And the natural environment will be taken into consideration. Will you consider organic development? And can you tell Madam Lee's father that the development will not affect his life? A consolidated answer. I'll give a brief reply. Yes, please. Chairman, we can't make a decision before any studies are completed. This is not scientific. Dr. Kenneth Chan. Thank you, Chairman. Secretary, have you read the newspaper? A newspaper conducted a poll on you. 60% of those polled think you should step down, you should resign. More people think that the NENT development plan should be withdrawn. This is what the public think. The administration says that it attaches importance to public views. So what's your view to the poll results? Hong Kong U also carried out a poll, a survey yesterday. There is a rise in no confidence, and the support to CY Leung fell. Overall dissatisfaction to the administration also rose. Does the administration think that is now being targeted, is now wrongly accused? But, Secretary, if you were the boss of a company, you may have the strongest policy, the strongest products in the world, but if you have the weakest salesman to promote the products, then there's no future for the product. Don't you see that you are the weakest point in the administration? How come you are still promoting this project? You may say that concerning yourself, your family members, any accusations against you or your family members, you don't have anything further to say. If you say that, it means you give up on convincing the public. The public already made it clear how they see you and how they see NENT development, how they see CY Leung's administration. Things are very clear. Have you thought about this? Staying in your post will affect the whole. Do you think staying in your post will be beneficial to the development plan, will be beneficial to your colleagues? How do you understand the poll results? Do you think you are a negative asset to the administration? Concerning public interest, Hong Kong development, public views, don't you think stepping down is an answer to all these? Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Before Mr. Chen arrived, I already said that I understand on conflict of interest of politically appointed officials, the public have high expectations, and I will continue to follow the declaration system in the EXCO, and also for that system, declaration system for politically appointed officials. For NENT, NDA development is a large project, and there are different views put forward. Last June, in the development panel, many members here, members from different political parties, thought the project should be implemented as soon as possible. During stage 3, public engagement, we collected lots of views. Lots of views about the proposal. And after that, my team devoted lots of time and effort to the project. We also conducted technical studies. I asked him about public views. I don't think we can continue with the dialogue. Ms. Sit Ho, the discussions at the development panel for the past few days should have been about the direction of Hong Kong's development, what we mean by development, and the impact of NENT project to individual villages. I would like to follow up on Mr. Li Po Lam, Mr. Tam, and issues. But because of the integrity issue of the Secretary, we can no longer discuss the policies. We can no longer discuss the individual cases we have. We have rather instead have to follow on the Secretary's integrity issue. So what you can do for Hong Kong Secretary is to step down. Secretary, you keep saying that you would stringently follow the guidelines, the rules, the system. I hope the officials will not lower their own expectation to the level that as long as you don't commit any crimes, then it's fine. We talk about political, moral, and public expectations. Secretary, don't you understand that the public expect you to have a higher moral standard? Last week, Kenneth Leung's motion was was not carried. The voting result was 7-7. His motion was discussed, and the motion asked Secretary to disclose the interest of secretaries and your family members. There is this chart in the newspaper laying out the relationships between different companies. It's so complicated. Secretary, you paused when you read the chart, and you said you asked which stage we asked you to clarify, and there is this newspaper statement from you to explain on one company only, but there are 10 other companies in the chart. What about the interrelationship between these companies? Are there any shares held that can't be disclosed? When will you disclose these? You say that these have been explained, but for the issues relating to the other 10 companies, we have yet to know the details behind them. You can't say you have explained it. You already admitted there are technical difficulties. You asked us which stage we would like you to begin. Why don't you tell us? Why don't you tell us which stage will not pose any technical difficulties to you if we ask you to give a reply? I don't think there's sufficient time for the Secretary to give a a reply, but maybe he can make a statement or publish a statement in the newspaper to give an explanation, maybe on the 10 companies and some other companies. You are a professional. You register the companies overseas so that unless you disclose the matters yourself, members of the public don't know what's behind the 10 companies registered overseas. And apart from the 10 companies, can you tell us if there's any more? There's not sufficient time for you. Why don't you publish a statement in the newspapers just to stop any further questions from the media? Secretary, the motion from Mr. Leung, I asked him what he meant by family members. I asked if he meant just wife and children. He said no. If the definition of family will cover the in-laws, the relative of the in-laws. Now, if that's the case, is it feasible to reply? People can refuse to answer, and sometimes you don't know certain things. Secretary, you made declaration in public, but in that we don't know things concerning the 10 companies. How can we know if there's anything further? I already said that I stringently follow the rules, and my wife's statement made it clear that for the plot in Kutong, what's her interest and our family's interest? There's inadequacies in the rules because the revelations, the disclosure doesn't cover the 10 other companies. So we have our doubts about these, what's behind these 10 companies. Your views are heard, Ms. Ho, Mr. Chen Kam-lam. I want to thank deputations and individuals, especially the villagers who are here with us. We have dividing views. Some are for the project, some against. Now, even for those who are against NENT development, they put forward some views that it is worthwhile for the administration to consider. Some think, or some don't want to see war effect. They don't want the buildings to be crowded together like Chen Kuan-o. So please do a good job there, administration. And they also talk about farmlands. I think the administration should consider these suggestions to see if these are feasible, because they talk about resuming the farmland and renting out the farmland, and whether the scheme for rehabilitation of farming is feasible. Now, all these are worthwhile for the administration to consider to see how you can better the plan. Some villagers are worried if their families will be broken up, and they're concerned about relocation and compensation. The administration should look at the real possible impact. Now, when it comes to moral accusation, we shouldn't be so emotional. And moral standard varies from person to person. I think we should look at facts.
You want to direct moral accusation at another person by using the most malicious language. That's not correct. Here in this council, we talk about reasoning. We talk about rationality. We try to find solutions. As for the Northeast NT project, Nobody ever said that it would be very easy to resolve. We just want to try our best to identify a practicable solution to solve the housing problem of Hong Kong. So we need planning. Just now, in the public gallery, somebody made a very good point. Tin Shui Wai, Tung Chung, and other new towns, if not for previous planning projects, will not be able to help address the demographic problem as well as the housing problem. So I'd like all of us to be pragmatic and realistic in identifying possible solutions. Don't target the bureau director. Don't make unfounded accusations and ask another person to step down. Last year, before Mr. C.Y. Leung, the CE, assumed office, some people already asked him to step down. That's irrational and unhelpful to the whole incident. So I hope that the whole of Hong Kong can be pragmatic and rational. Any more members for the first round? Stephen Ho, Alan Leong? Stephen Ho. Just now, I heard many friends criticize Mr. Wai-chuen, the Bureau Director, very severely. Are family problems or issues so important? Sometimes I dare not ask my mother how much money she possesses. As a son, I can only ask her not to worry. So in our society, that's a bit difficult. And there was this accusation that the Bureau Director is involved in conflict of interest. I think that is digressing because we're talking about the development of Northeast NT. And in as early as 1994, the Bureau Director already bought the land. And the CE asked him to take up this responsibility. If he is to avoid the whole project just because his family members own landlords in the area, would it be good to the whole society of Hong Kong? Just think about this. If the Bureau Director can use his wife's money, then actually he is very safe in terms of livelihood. If he's not the Bureau Director, he may be earning more, or his family may be earning more. This time, the public relations work of the Bureau Director is not good enough. I think Mr. Wai-chuen should cautiously consider that. Now, let me come back to the agricultural issues mentioned by our friends here. I'd like to ask the Secretary this. For the agricultural associations and indigenous villages, they're saying that the rehabilitation program will not be able to solve all agricultural problems. Well, I'll give you time to answer my question. I'd like to know your response. Do you have reserve plans? Do you have enhanced plans for agricultural sustainability? That's point number one. Secondly, for those friends who've been farming on their own lots for decades, can compensation packages and concessionary measures proposed address their concerns? And then if the farmland does not belong to them under joint development, how can these farmers do? How can they attain transformation? Secretary, concerning rehabilitation, one of the deputations, and Mr. Stephen Ho, made a very good point. The existing rehabilitation program may not be able to address the rehabilitation problems related to the Northeast Anti-Development Project. On the one hand, we've identified sites in Kutong South. On the other, we're collaborating with the Food and Health Bureau to see how we can further improve the effectiveness of the rehabilitation program. For Kutong South, it is zoned for agricultural use, so it will be for agriculture. Are we going to use public money to buy certain lots to assist farmers in rehabilitation? I recall that at the last 2 panel meetings, this was discussed. We promised, and in actual fact, will carry out studies. However, I'm afraid that we may not be able to complete all those studies on rehabilitation before we proceed with Northeast NT development. Both have to proceed concurrently. Mr. Alan Leung, Mr. Chairman, on behalf of the Civic Party, I'd like to thank all those deputations and individuals attending. As many of our colleagues said just now, originally we could have discussed compensation, identification of land sites for housing, without having to drive out people who base their homes in Northeast NT. The official in charge, Mr. Paul Chan, the Bureau Director, is related to a crucial issue, that is possible conflict of interest. That's why the whole development project cannot kick off. Well, Secretary, can you consider this arrangement? All along, when we discussed the process, the Bureau Director explained that in September last year, he did make declarations to the Chief Executive, C.Y. Leung. How did he make that declaration? What did he declare? To what extent was that declaration? We have no details. Be it the CE C.Y. Leung or Paul Chan, the Bureau Director, were very vague in their remarks about the declaration last year. Can we have more details here? I think the civil servants here understand that for more than once, Mr. Paul Chan, the Bureau Director, said that although he is not a civil servant, the CE and his team were very willing to put civil service requirements on themselves. Under the civil service regulations, in Article 3.4, it said that if you are to make policy decisions, you have to declare your actual conflict of interest to your supervisor. You have to declare potential conflict of interest or perceptually conflict of interest. So last year, did Mr. Paul Chan declare to the CE his actual, perceptual, and potential conflict of interest related to this almost 20,000 square meters of land? If he did so, he might be able to retain a certain degree of his credibility. So I'd like to know more about his declaration to the CE. Secretary? Mr. Chairman, at the end of September last year, I reported to the CE that my wife had in Northeast NT, Kutong South, a piece of land which is owned together with her family members. My wife was a minority shareholder. When she knew that the location of the site was within Northeast NT development area, she proactively proposed to me that she would sell off her interest in the site. So In October last year, the transaction was completed. Upon the completion of the transaction, did you report to the CE, and what's the instruction from the CE? Secretary, Mr. Chairman, after selling off the interest, I did report to the CE. Now, Mr. Gary Fan would like to ask for a second round. Any more for the second round? Dr. Fernando Cheung. Similarly, I have to reserve certain time for the officials to reply and for members of the public to express their views. 2 minutes each. Mr. Gary Fan. Thank you, Chairman. Just now, Mr. Kwan from New Democrats mentioned that in September last year, Green Sense submitted a substitute plan by using Fanling Golf Course. And the Bureau Director said that he only knew of that last year. For Ping Chair, Kutong North, Kutong South, the villagers only knew last year that their homes might be demolished. A tragedy might occur, that is, the whole village might be wiped off. Now the Fanling Golf Course is to be included in the study on NT North. I think that's delaying tactic only. Just now Mr. Alan Leong mentioned the code for the politically accountable officials. Article 5.1 is very clear. PAOs shall avoid putting themselves in a position where they might arouse any suspicion of dishonesty, unfairness, or conflict of interest. Mr. C.Y. Leung, after accepting the report from Mr. Chan, should have asked Mr. Chan, the Secretary, to handle the issue properly. Why is it that just on Sunday, 3,000 people took to the streets to ask Mr. Paul Chan and Mr. C.Y. Leung to step down? Both of them are similar. They mutually cover up their own problems. So, Secretary, do you still think that you are honest, fair, and without any conflict of interest, such that you can continue to take charge of the Northeast NT project? Bureau Director, Mr. Chairman, I absolutely don't have any conflict of interest. Dr. Fernando Cheung, Mr. Chairman, with no power to remove the Bureau Director. Today, the Bureau Director is saying on his own that he is a good official and he'll continue in his post. We want to know all conflicts of interest involved, past or present, subdivided flats, the landlords in Northeast NT, and all unfairness involved. The CE said that in future young people would be moving there. And today, you have to pick up this chopper to destroy the homes of the residents of Northeast NT. Just by the side of this NDA, there's already a golf course serving the tycoons. You never wanted to touch it. You said that it would be included in the NT North study. That's totally illogical. What this council has to do is that we have to let the public understand that for this unfair government, which is to axe the disadvantaged and the vulnerable, it is so clear that it wants to benefit the big consortia who have been hoarding land in order to reap profits there. Even professional bodies are telling you that you should not proceed this way. You want to have development. Nobody says that we don't want development. But you must not totally disregard the life and limb of the villagers and the development of agriculture? Can you be more rational? Can you be more people-oriented in your approach? Can you care more about agriculture, environment, and all sorts of community care? Can you go back and reconsider the whole project? I ask the officials to provide a comprehensive reply. 10 minutes first for the Bureau Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposed plan is put forth to the public after very careful consideration. For Mr. Gary Fan's remarks, as I repeatedly said, on the 10th of October last year, my wife sold off her interest in Kutong through Orient Express. After the sale, my wife, my son, and I no longer had any interest in the site. And even before the sale, I never had any interest in the land there. And my wife's family has already announced that the site would be tendered for sale, so as to totally cut ourselves off from any suspicion related to that lot. So I don't think there's any conflict of interest in my future handling of Northeast NT development. We just now said that the Planners Association mentioned integration of the rural and urban areas. Maybe Ms. Zhang can elaborate. For Kutong and Shangshui, if we are to take them together, in the most central area, 30 hectares of land in the Long Valley area would be preserved for agriculture, particularly wet agriculture. And then to the north and to the south, there are another 45 hectares of land to be reserved for agriculture. So altogether, 82 hectares of land. So within towns, if we have this piece of rural area, it's a rather new design. 82 hectares is equivalent to 4 Victoria Parks in area. We may not be able to attain integration between the urban and rural areas as spelled out by Mr. Chang, but at least we're able to retain a piece of agricultural lot. I'd also like to thank Mr. Chang for his remarks on urban planning. In fact, all along, the planning department has attached importance to urban design. Mr. Chang asked why the original plot ratio was 5 and the building height was 35 stories maximum. Now we've revised the plot ratio to 6, and we did not correspondingly adjust the building height. He asked whether horizontal development and wall effect would result. I can say that in the revised plan, we carefully assessed whether or not there would be a screening effect in future.
So we have already estimated this. Using a site coverage of 18%, overall we can still accommodate the developments we proposed. So we have not made any adjustment to the building height restriction. We've also done a series of ventilation assessments, and we've also identified breeze channels and also proposed building setbacks. When we do the OZP, perhaps these proposals can be incorporated. Any more supplement? Perhaps Mr. Chow, the PS can supplement on rehabilitation of farmland. Well, in planning for this large-scale project, we have done it very carefully, hoping to minimize the number of villages that have to be relocated. However, inevitably, we'll have to affect about 28 hectares of land, as Ms. Zhang said, in Long Valley and the southern and northern part of Long Valley. We have 28 hectares of land zoned for agriculture, and then in Kudong South, we will also earmark land for rehabilitation of farming. We understand that some owners may not be willing to sell or lease their agriculture zones. So we have 100 hectares of land in Kudong South zoned for agriculture. When owners know that there is no development potential, then they may be more willing to sell or lease the land to farmers for rehabilitation. We're discussing with development bureaus as to how we can improve our rehabilitation plans. Regarding the Fanning Golf Course, I think we have talked about this a number of times. To put it briefly or succinctly, speakers off mic. Mr. Chen, I have not directed you to speak, so can you please remain silent? You are impeding our meeting. Mr. Chen, please shut up. Mr. Chen, please follow our rules of procedures. Mr. Chen, please keep quiet. Mr. Chen, if you continue in this way, I have no choice but to invite you to leave. Mr. Chen, if you can speak without my permission, I will have to ask you to go. Mr. Paul Chen? We have talked about the Fanning Golf Course a number of times here. When I responded to deputations on several occasions, to put it succinctly, Mr. Chen, let me warn you once again. Well, to put it succinctly, we have included that in the anti-north study because it has a size of 170 hectares. We cannot just build buildings on it. We have to carry out an EIA, air quality assessment, and for NENT, there are 114 hectares, or rather 600 odd hectares. Only half of it, that is over 300 hectares, can be developed, and only 110 hectares of land out of that 300 odd hectares can be used for housing developments. So, in addition to housing, we must provide the necessary job opportunities and community facilities, including schools, hospitals, footbridges, so on and so forth. So, we need time to carry out the study. And there will also have to be public engagement exercise to discuss with the public how the development should proceed. That would take a few years. And Chairman, Fanning North and Kutong North are chosen for the anti-North NDAs as just next to the current developments. Is served by public transport and utilities, so it can be ready for population intake sooner. So it's impossible to replace NENT NDAs with the golf course. However, we can incorporate the golf course in our study of the anti-North. Meanwhile, the Home Affairs Bureau can also conduct a review of the use of land for private clubs. So the two can be done simultaneously. Any other supplement? No? Thank you very much. We end our discussion here. I thank government officials and deputations and individuals for coming to the meeting. If there is no AOB item, I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you.